Hello everyone and welcome. It's good to see you all here today. My name is Jillian Cobb and I'm the Public Programs Producer here at the National Nordic Museum. It is my pleasure today to introduce today's program, Tomas Colbengtson and Stina Folkebrant in conversation with Curator Leslie Ann Anderson, where we will get to meet the wonderful artists behind the special exhibition, Mygration. So working as an artist since 1991 and an Indigenous curator since 2016, Tomas Colbengtson is a Sámi artist whose works often refer to Sámi culture, investigating cultural identity, history, and Indigenous peoples' contemporary issues. Through his artwork, he asks how colonial heritage has changed Indigenous lives and landscapes. He is continuously experimenting with new forms of media and material, from overlay glass and metal printing to etching and digital art forms. His works have been exhibited across the world, including in the Nordic countries, Japan, Italy, Greece, Spain, Egypt, and many more. Stina Folkebrant is a muralist inspired by Chinese ink painting, where black is blended with water to achieve a grayscale. Using black and white acrylics, Stina's motifs are animals and landscapes. Her vision is to create an encounter between the observer and the animals, as well as highlighting that humans are also animals. She most often paints on canvas measuring 3 by 4.5 meters, but also uses old lace sheets and wooden folding screens. She received her artistic training at art schools in Gothenburg and Stockholm, as well as in scene painting studios in the Opera in Gothenburg. Stina holds 2 degrees in art history and religious studies, with theses on Zen painting during the Song Dynasty in China. This interest in history, philosophy, and science are reflected in her titles and are a great inspiration. Leslie Anderson is the National Nordic Museum's Director of Collections, Exhibitions, and Programs. She has organized major exhibitions in Sweden's National Museum, Finland's National Gallery, and the Smithsonian American Art Museum. Leslie has curated over 20 exhibitions and acquired over 1,000 works of art for collections in her purview. Currently, she is collaborating with Jonsi, vocalist for the world-famous band Sigur Rós, on his first art exhibition at a U.S. museum, opening in March. Previously, Leslie held curatorial positions at the Utah Museum of Fine Arts and Indianapolis Museum of Fine Art, and she gained additional experience at the Metropolitan Museum of Art and National Gallery in Denmark. For 6 years, she taught art history in courses at Brooklyn College, Parsons School of Design, and Indiana University, Purdue University, Indianapolis. Leslie won the International Association of Art Museum Curators Award for Excellence in Exhibitions in 2018 and the Utah Museums Association Award for Excellence in Exhibitions in 2020. She is contributing author for AANC's latest Best Practices Guide and a member of the editorial board of the International Journal Arts. In 2022, Leslie was appointed by Mayor Bruce Harrell to the Seattle Arts Commission. Previously, Salt Lake City's then Mayor Jackie Biskupski selected her for the city's art design board. A former Fulbright scholar to Denmark, Leslie earned her graduate degrees at City University of North Carolina, City University of New York Graduate Center, and University of Florida. So I'd like to welcome Leslie, Tomas, and Stina to the stage and kick us off for our conversation.
I just want to say thank you to the artists, Stina and Tomas. We've been talking about this exhibition for several years. It's wonderful to be here with you on stage and to see your vision realized in the Barbara Osher Gallery. I also want to thank our partner, Pacific Sámi CRV, for their support along the way in developing this exhibition. So, thank you all. Let's start off with basically the beginning of your career. What made you decide to become an artist?
You're looking at me. Yes, good question. No, but I was introduced into Sámi carving, as you have in the West Coast carving tradition. But we are like a nomadic people, so we have to carry it all over. How to say artisan work. We don't make a big poles. So I had this strong carving teacher, Sune Enoksson, a master carver, and we did bone carving mostly and tree. But I felt there was a silence, that something had affected people in my neighborhood and Sámi. I could understand that it was a big something was wrong. Nobody really could talk about it. I understood that actually this carving tradition was a silent resistance. This was the last voice that we actually could practice. Our language was forbidden, religion forbidden, the land was confiscated. So I think this actually was, I felt the need. I can see it retrospective now, that this was the starting point. And it has been a journey, art has been a journey for me to learn. I'm still learning. Coming here, meeting people, you here in Seattle area, Washington, and up in Canada, has been a revelation.
Thank you. Stina, could you talk a bit about your decision to become an artist and maybe some periods of artistic production or regions that have influenced you?
Yes. I started painting on walls when I was 3 years old, actually. My mother was a textile designer and my father was working in selling paint in a store. He had a store selling paint. So we had a lot of paint at home and my mother was very creative. So me and my brother, we were allowed to paint on the walls in our rooms. And so it felt very natural for me. I painted a lot. And at the same time, I had several animals, so I loved animals. So my dream started when I was a little girl. I wanted to be a vet or an artist. And when I was a teenager, I worked in my hometown zoo with the horses, smaller animals. And then I saw the vet working, and I understood that, oh, it's not for me. I better be an artist. So, and I said, drawing the animals on my breaks. So I think I was around 15, 16 years old when I actually took the decision. But I think when I look back, then I always wanted to be an artist because it was a way of life for me. It's a way of living, like breathing and eating. I paint. So I tried not to paint for some years in my life, and it didn't work out. And you asked me about some periods.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm very interested in the Chinese ink painting. That's why I paint only in black and white. So I use black acrylic and water, and I have a white surface. And it's important for me to show my brush strokes because it's like my soul is coming out of my arm. So I don't want to do photorealistic art. I want to leave a kind of a personal print for the viewer.
And in your studies in religion and art history, that have informed your practice, I'd say.
Absolutely. I studied Chan Buddhism in China. That was the Buddhism that inspired the Zen Buddhism in Japan later on. And during that time, I'm very inspired by the way they approach nature. They go out in nature and they meditate, which I also do. I kind of try to go into the deep of the nature, and I try to meditate on the animal. I actually play that I am the animal that I paint, for example, as like a game. So I still feel like that little girl. When I was little, I walked out in the forest with my father and my brother and my mother, and they taught us to be quiet and watch the nature, kind of melt into the nature. So I was taught that as a child, so I think I carry that with me when I do painting.
Tomas, there is a video in the gallery in which you talk about your formative years in art school. And you talk about how you were encouraged to paint landscapes, but you were discouraged from depicting people. What made you question that guidance? And you are an art teacher yourself. You've taught at Konstfack. What advice do you give your students?
I'm on my, so to say, I didn't, some people were not considered to be able to create art. We could create, artisan work, simple, like bowls or similar practical things, but not higher art. So this was taught by racial bias, this politics. That still actually, I must say that Sweden is still a racial country, although publicly they don't see themselves, they see them very democratic. But this is kind of something that is hidden, that it's not really clearly defined. It's more like a practice, and practice in authority and things like that. But anyway, for me to get the knowledge, of course, I would like to understand what fine art is. So I applied for a school, but I had more or less invent myself into, so to say, a Swedish, a non-song. And in that I also had to for my, what I was training, I could do the carving really, although I started with fine printmaking, but I had to become a, so to say, a Swedish, non-song. And in that aspect, the subject that I was, the spiritual side and the how to say the visual language and everything, I had to, so to say, learn in a big circle. I'm now back where I started anyway, actually. Planning to do carving. So, but it was a journey for me to knowledge, actually. And as you said, I have now retired from the academy, but what did I teach my student in? I see myself, don't trust teachers, so to say. Do the opposite of what I'm saying.
Thank you. With regard to the current exhibition, could you talk a little bit about your artistic process? I'll start with you, Stina.
I have been thinking about painting reindeers for a long time, but I didn't find any good entrance to it. And one day I saw that Tomas was going to work in the glass studio where I have my studio. It's a big house with 100 artists. And Tomas also has his studio there now. And we were acquaintances. And I thought, oh, how nice, Tomas is coming here. He makes this glass art. And during the night I had this dream about, actually I get a vision of exactly this exhibition. And I woke up and I did the sketch and I thought, I have to call Tomas. So I took the courage to write to him and asked for a meeting. And you said yes immediately, and we met, and we started working on this exhibition. And we had my dream as a start. And we have been, it has been a very interesting work, because we meet, we always meet. Tomas says something about time, and then I think about that, and then we kind of try to show it in our art, the piece, the art itself. So that's why we've been working with the transparency, seeing both Tomas' artwork and mine at the same time. So we wanted to create a third piece of art, so kind of melting our art together.
Yeah, I do believe in the power of know, the situation and what the faith has for us. So I try to say yes all the time, and I see that our thing that we started to create, it has landed here on the right place. The subject and everything, and I see this as beautiful. I mean, Seattle area and you people here are so important in this artwork. So this is, I mean, we didn't plan this. It was given to us. So thank you for that, Curator.
You know, the creative process doesn't stop with the conception of the exhibition or the creation of the work. It's living and breathing. I've gotten to have a front row seat to your collaborative process. Could you talk a little bit about that? You know, what have been the artistic decisions that you made about this experiential exhibition along the way? How has it changed from one venue, it was in Jokkmokk, then it was in Bern, and now here?
Well, first of all, the rooms, the exhibition rooms. In Aite, there were a square room. And from the beginning, we actually wanted to hang the canvases in a ring. But as you see, they are very big, so you need a big room. But at Aite, we took the decision to hang them on the walls. So it was a square room. And we hanged Tomas plexiglass in the middle. And I think that room was bigger than this here. So then there were more space or emptiness, or as you can say. And in Bern, it was the contrary. It was a small room, so I couldn't put all the canvases up. But that was very more intimate, and that was also good. So I think that our exhibition is, we can change it, make it bigger and smaller, and it still works.
But I mean, we have to adjust, and as you see, it continued to develop during the different places where we exhibit. But the shape and everything, it's a chorale. It's you know, when you brand the reindeer calves or separate the big herd, you put them in a big corral and they run anti-clockwise, and the people are standing in the center, you know, with a lasso and capture the reindeers. So actually this is a corral, but a corral in time, concentrated time and space. So our big, I mean, so to say, hope is that we could do this corral perhaps outside in a bigger space. Now we are limited with the room sizes.
So in this exhibition, there's the kind of presentation of some archival material before you experience the exhibition that strengthens its link to Seattle's history. And the exhibition, of course, the inspiration is the journey of Sámi reindeer herders and reindeer in the 1890s by the invitation of the US government. This is a story that may not be very well known by American audiences, by Nordic audiences. How did you learn about this story?
Well, for me, I didn't know about this story at all. I saw a documentary on Swedish television, and I was shocked because I've never heard about it. And I was very inspired also by the strength and the courage of the Sámi who actually traveled here. So I asked Tomas if he knew about it.
Yes, I met Inuit grandchild who moved to our little home village in Tärna in Sweden. So that about 20 years ago, that was more like clearly I heard about this enterprise or adventure. Although I know that there are many Sámi relatives that lives in this area, but they have moved in separate, different time waves. But but anyway, I got those direct contact to a grandchild to people who was involved with it. But there were intermarriage between Inuit and Sámi also.
So, some source material for your work, Thomas, is a body of photography of Sámi reindeer herders and reindeer. Could you talk a little bit about your process in looking at these archival images? And some of those images are in dialogue with your work in the gallery.
Yeah, I feel the magic of photography, especially old photography of Sámi people, because of the non-written and non-spoken history that we got. We have oral tradition, but since this silence culture and this active political strive to eradicate Sámi people has gone on so very long time. I mean, start with the church in the 1500s, forbidding the religion. So I can see, but actually the photography is kind of a documentation that Sámi people exist. I mean, there are even politicians right now arguing, well, Swedes, normal Sweden were first and things like this. So this is more like something to raise it a bit. I mean, doing art is actually an act of politics. Although, if you write a big banner that says this is not a political statement, it still is a political statement. So, I mean, as long as people can feel proud about their heritage, I mean, that's the first step.
The relationship between the archival image and your contemporary work really makes one consider time, the passage of time. And Stina, you have also been thinking about time, circular time versus linear time, in your piece of the collaboration. Could you talk about how your works are presented and how they are meant to get us thinking about the passage of time?
Yes, I have chosen 8 canvases to paint on 8, and that is from the 8 seasons in the north of Sweden. And that is the circular time, the seasons. And then you have the linear, that is seconds and hours. And then you have the time in the language, which is past, present, and future. And then the imaginary, that is about our thoughts about time. So I have been thinking about this and put it into my paintings and our whole artwork, because it is the movement. I've been painting movement, so the movement is actually creating time. And we have this past history that we're talking about, and we are here in the present, and we are moving into the future. So it's very philosophical. You can get the feeling of it when you walk in the exhibition and everything is moving. Tomas's pieces of plexiglass is swirling a little bit, and you see shadows from the past, and then you see yourself in the mirror. So you have the past and the present there at the same time. We've tried to, and maybe you don't think about it, and it's okay, but if you think about it, it's beautiful. Yeah.
Do you have any recommendations for how people should experience the exhibition based on that?
Well, actually go with the flow. I think just go in there and try to just be open and feel with your gut and feel with your senses, and also read about the history that we are so inspired of, the Sámi. So you have so many layers that you can look at. So it's up to you.
We have this idea of making a kind of ceremony or performance since the reindeers always move in the anti-clockwise circle when they are enclosed. We would like to do this representation, but perhaps with people and children doing a ceremony there. Hopefully it will be realized. If not, it's in an image, a vision.
So this exhibition will continue to have life at other venues, but what else are you working on? What is coming up for you, Tomas?
I will be back. I'm soon with the Arctic Highway exhibition. It's an indigenous art exhibition that is originated from a nomadic art or a nomadic residence for indigenous artists in Scandinavia. And this is for supporting indigenous artists and giving them a platform. And to do this, we also, to create a network, we have had this exhibition with 9 Sámi artists, 2 from Canada and 1 from Alaska, Sonja Keller-Combs. And what more? Yeah, I have a public building meeting and go to Faroe Islands and go to Chicago.
So the exhibition that Tomas is speaking of, Arctic Highways, will be here at the National Nordic Museum from early August of 2023 to late November. So we're hoping that he returns for that program.
Yes, there will be probably many of the artists that are exhibiting will join also.
Very good. Stina, what are you working on next?
Well, that is a mural, actually, that I'm going to paint here outside the National Nordic Museum in February. So I will be back for some weeks. And you're all welcome to visit me. I will be standing outdoors painting. And I always have time for a fika. Otherwise, I will go, next year I will go on a road trip with a documentary filmer called Martha Trayer. And we will start in New York and we will drive to Santa Fe, New Mexico. And she will do a film about me and my creative process when I go out in nature. So we will stop and go out in nature, and maybe I will do some painting on the way. We will see what happens. And then in Santa Fe I will have an exhibition. And there are more things happening after that year.
And you've spent some time in New Mexico previously, because I had the privilege of seeing a beautiful mural that was inspired by your time there in Sigla this summer.
Yes, I went to Santa Fe, New Mexico on a scholarship for 5 weeks. And I wanted to experience the wild horses because I had a commission to paint wild horses in Stockholm. So I actually went out in the high desert, and I think during 7 hours I saw more than 40 wild horses. So I was really inspired. And it was great to be able to bring them to Stockholm, the wild horses.